Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. Here I have a great article for you guys from Light Reading, from Mike over at Light Reading. I'll leave a link to this in the description so you guys could check it out. So I wanted to add more to this article. So is T-Mobile shifting focus from mid-band 5G to fiber or US Cellular? Perhaps that's something that can be debated and discussed, because there have been reports of US Cellular being the best fit for T-Mobile, and then T-Mobile branching off into leased fiber, right? But I don't think that's going to become of any main priority or main significance for the company. I think that's still a it's a play for them potentially, right? But it's a upside. It's not going to all of a sudden be T-Mobile's main priority, right? But something that I want to add to in this article is there are growing indications that T-Mobile isn't planning to move quickly to deploy its C-band and DoD spectrum, Department of Defense spectrum 3.45 holdings. That could free up the operator for a fiber play or an acquisition. So I want to bring some clarity to that, right? So that second, if you want to call it the second phase of mid-band deployment, that wasn't going to be a big part of the company's scheduling or planning anyway. They don't have it nationwide, right? And meaning nationwide, I'll clarify that too. Nationwide meaning every inch of the country, right? They have it across 220 million pops. So per the FCC, they can call it nationwide. And once they hit 200, they probably will say they have C-band deployed nationwide. They'll probably do that for marketing purposes, but they don't have it across the entire country. So this is a small focus, right? It's not going to take a lot of CapEx to fund this if they want to deploy it more aggressively. Right now, and this is what I'm being told, this is what I'm throwing in my commentary. Right now, it's not a huge focus because they don't have a lot of congestion issues currently. They're still deploying 2.5 on some sites, right? That's one, keep that in mind. They're still deploying that. They're still increasing the spectrum bandwidth on some sites, right? Meaning, PCS is being moved to NR. They're going to eventually move some of that AWS to NR, and they want to get to 200 megahertz on average nationwide of mid-band deployed. So that's still ongoing as well. And of course, they're still increasing backhaul, so the speeds are going to increase. And that's besides of what they still have to deploy with the C-band and the DoD, right? So here's what I'm being told, and I'll throw that out there as a scoop for you guys. The earliest that T-Mobile is considering any type of deployment on this spectrum, the C-band and the DoD, is the second quarter of 2024. The reason that is, they are still waiting for both OEMs, that's Nokia and Ericsson. They're still waiting for both of them to have the dual band radio. They are not prematurely deploying any of the spectrum to scale. They're not going to go the AT&T route. They're not going to deploy one radio for C-band and a second radio for DoD. They're not doing that. It would be inefficient for them to do so. They're just not going to do that. Why? They have 2.5, on a lot of their sites, right? They got to be approaching the 50,000 mark that they want it to be at, maybe even a little more. So why would you go and deploy C-band and DoD? Just all of a sudden we're going to deploy this big, massive CapEx plan to deploy that when we have sites out there that are doing 1.5 gigs on 180 megahertz of spectrum. Now, I know that's not everywhere, right? It's fragmented. Some markets probably should be prioritized a bit sooner. But even then, right, like, for example, El Paso is a perfect example. 80 megahertz, and that's aggregated. And we really can't go beyond that right now. So C-band DoD would be a perfect opportunity for deployment here. But they're still going to wait out. There's still not a big congestion concern to where they have to all of a sudden deploy this emergency plan to deploy the C-band and DoD. They're not doing that. They're going to wait until dual band radios are ready, And then also they're going to wait until supply has a good amount to the supply demand, right? If there is demand, if they do want to deploy it a bit more aggressively, they want to make sure that Ericsson and Nokia have those radios readily available for their deployment wherever they choose to deploy. And then I am told, the reason the second quarter is on the list on the board is because that's when Ericsson is anticipated to have that dual band radio ready. Nokia already has it, from what I'm told, but Ericsson is expected by the second quarter of next year to have a dual band radio to where they can deploy one single panel that'll have a dual band radio in it that can do C-band and DoD. Now that's not for every market, right? For example, Florida, like the Marion County, Orlando, PEA, I believe, they only bought C-band. They didn't purchase DoD, so they could already technically deploy just a C-band panel today and be good to go. So that might be a different story, right? But for my area and a good chunk of the areas that they did purchase in, they have both. So they're going to wait for a dual band radio. They are not going to deploy two separate radios like AT&T is doing, right? AT&T really said that they would climb sites only once, but that went out the window. And now they're deploying two separate radios, which it adds weight to the site. They had to pay for an additional panel and radio, so they're spending a bit more than they probably anticipated themselves, right? But they said, screw it, we need to put it out there. We're going to do fixed wireless access. So they're going to make some money back on that. But, that's the whole reasoning behind T-Mobile waiting. They're not going to rush it. They're not going to put up some, big capital plan to deploy it when they already have a great layer with 2.5, which is not congested right now. And that's with fixed wireless access being in use. They're going to wait. They're going to do this very strategically. This deployment will not resemble any pace of 2.5. So get that out of your mind. That's not going to happen. They're going to gradually, slowly deploy this. And then I'm told they're still going to look at that congestion protection that Neville mentioned early on, right? They're going to only deploy this probably in areas where they see like, oh man, this sector, this tower is really slowing down. We need to go ahead and deploy the spectrum. If you're on the tower that has 2.5, that has a lot of bandwidth, they're 800-900 a gig during peak hours, they're not going to deploy C-band DoD on that site. Not going to happen. So just wanted to bring some clarity on that. The fiber or the US Cellular piece, are they shifting focus to that? You can debate that in the comments. I'm going to say no, right? It's something that they're looking into. But even the fiber, the T fiber that they have already out there, it's expanding somewhat, right? I've seen recently Houston, Texas is getting it. New York, Colorado has some of it. But it's not to anything where you need to go run out and say, oh man, T-Mobile's a big, huge fiber player now. They're not doing that either. So just keep that in mind as you think about those two things. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.